What? Jesus said, at that time men will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory. What? Earlier, I think it's 3 times in Mark, 5 times, and if you put Matthew, Mark, and Luke together, he predicted himself, Son of Man, favorite title of Jesus, 81 times in the Gospels, 14 times, I think it's 14 times in Mark alone, 81 times in the Gospels he uses that favorite title of himself. He predicted that he was going to die. He was going to suffer at the hand of Gentiles. Gentiles. And die. Suffer. Ugh. And here he's saying he's going to come back. He's coming in the clouds. You think he's sitting on clouds like with a harp? You've seen those pictures? No. We'll talk about that later. Welcome, by the way. It says, at that time, men will see the Son of Man, that's himself, no doubt, coming in clouds with great power and glory. Notice it says, at that time. The word in some translations is then. Then. When was it at that time? We'll go to the verse before. Do you remember the verses before? The sun will be darkened. Wait, let's go back a little bit further. But in those days, following the distress, the big trouble, the tribulation, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give us light. You know, you remember this? Sun, moon, and stars. This is going to be kind of like darkened, like it's going to be a dark time, I guess. I don't think it's necessarily saying it's the physical ones. Could be. I've already talked about that last time. Let's not review that. Also, though, it's interesting, you know, I don't even necessarily think that I was given a suggestion last time, like these are the rulers and all that. I don't know. It's just pretty intense time. It's used as a judgment. In the Old Testament, it's used as judgment. All right, we don't want to review that. God spoke of it as a judgment. It says, in those days, following the distress, boom. Now, it could be that trouble, that tribulation of like the false Christ and the persecution and the deaths and everything. And, you know, brother's going to be put to death and the abomination of desolation and all that. And that's the trouble. And then, boom, Jesus Christ smashes. He comes in clouds of glory with power and glory. And he takes down Jerusalem. The one who they rejected, Jerusalem rejected, not all of them, but the leaders. He's going to come back and give vindication. He's going to, vengeance. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord. Is that what he's saying? At that time, the men will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great glory. I'll say this, that everything is pointed to his crucifixion and death. He's predicted it and all that. Then he says, later on, I'm coming back. The Son of Man will come. He's talking about himself. He's right there talking to the apostles. And he says, he's telling them at that time later. So I don't know that it doesn't seem to be that's in the future, although it really could be. Like it still hasn't even happened. It's the second coming of Jesus. Very well maybe. I mean, there is a possibility that this Jesus Christ coming, by the way, the word is parousia, could be that when he's coming on clouds of glory, now some people are going to laugh at this, that it's an invisible coming. Or it could be the visible coming, which we haven't seen that yet, and that will happen. That's my belief. He's coming down, you guys. He's coming back. My personal opinion is not 3 or 4 different comings. It's only 2. If you read through the Bible, I don't think he's going to come, snatch us away, go up for 7 years, and then come back later. I just don't see that in the Bible. It's kind of stretching some scriptures, or they could be right, but I don't think so. Jesus mentions this second coming. Although there is a second coming here, if this is invisible coming, and then there's a third coming where he comes back visibly. Could be. That's a third coming. But I believe that some people, a lot of people, most Christians believe, by the way, I think, that he's going to come back, snatch the church away, and leave the earth here. And as it is, 7 years later, he comes back again. I don't see that in the Bible. But there is a possible judgment coming, where it says, at that time, men will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great glory. What do you mean clouds? he's going to come surrounded by clouds, like clothed in clouds? No, I don't think so, because that word right there, clouds, was used in different ways in the Old Testament. One of the big ways is judgment. Again, he's coming down to judgment. And that's what he's talking about all through here, the judgment of Jerusalem. Because that was their question, about the destruction of the temple and all. And he's saying at that time, notice the word then, or at that time. It doesn't seem like it's going to be in the future when he's talking about at that time. Although the sun and all that could be later. It's like, what do you do? It's like goes back and forth. Also, the word clouds is used often, not only for judgment, and that's used over and over in the Old Testament, but not only judgment, also the presence and glory of God. Like the Shekinah glory, the clouds. That's used several times, And it's also even talks about him riding on chariots of clouds. Like, it's just a poetic way of saying he's coming with his presence and all. Like in Psalms, it's Isaiah, it says it. And so clouds, it also talks about him riding with cherubs, the cherubim. The cherubim is how some people say, I think it's cherubim. The angels and all that, riding with them and all. All right, I don't know. So clouds with great power and glory is again taking a way of saying what the literature in the Old Testament, how it said it. It's very familiar Jewish terminology, ways of saying something. And so I think the clouds with great power and glory could be just the idea of his judgment coming down. And then it goes on and it says the next verse about him, he's sending his angels. Now this passage right here seems like, if you compare it to all the New Testament verses all over the place, it seems like it could be a very strong reference to his actual his second coming. In other words, physical appearance. He was physically there at that time. He's going to physically appear again. And it says, all eyes shall see him. And by the way, it says at that time, men will see the Son of Man coming in clouds. The problem again, I go back and forth on this. Problem again is that those same terms are what's when he comes down in judgment against the different nations. And he comes on clouds to do it. So it could be just vocabulary of the Old Testament telling the disciples who were Jewish people, judgment, power of judgment. And again, this is him vindicating himself. It's like he's saying, I'm going to be seen through this judgment here, these terms of judgment. He's going to be coming back. And so, it's very possible. These are really interesting verses. It's difficult verses. I'm not going to just say, well, that's the way it is, when I could be dead wrong. It's important for you to not just take somebody's opinion and just run with it. So I don't have a full opinion on it. I tend to think, if I had a scale here, I tend to go towards this is at that time and in those days, because he's talking about, if you go back verse by verse, he really is talking about the tribulation of those days, and that was 70 AD. And then right after all that trouble, then boom, the judgment of Christ comes down and destroys the temple. And how does he do it? He didn't do it with his own power. He could have. That will be the real second coming. When Christ comes back, he's going to come down and tear up Jack. He's going to really destroy the earth and all that. Well, that hasn't happened. So this is a poetic way of saying that he's coming down and judging him. How did he do it? Through armies of of Rome. I said that last time too. Roman armies. He's going to use Titus and Vespasian and the emperor and come down. And he's going to judge this sad and sorry nation of Israel who rejected their Messiah. He's going to start a new kingdom. And the whole thing is, by the way, well, I'll get into that later. Well, I'll mention it now. I'll mention it again later. Is that, and he sends his angels to gather his elect. That's a big theme in the Bible, like the scattered elect of Israel and the tribes. By the way, Matthew mentions in chapter 24, every eye shall see him, and the tribes shall see him and mourn. Is that the tribes of the whole earth or the tribes of Israel? There's 12 tribes. And the whole earth, they were scattered all over the place. When Jerusalem went down, they were mourning. They were really crying. Mourn means to cry and weep, not just Good morning, rise and shine. All right, I'm sorry, I'm talking to little kids in there too. So I don't know, I think that's all I kind of wanted to share there. It just seems to me that at that time, men will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great glory, power and glory. I love that, by the way, if you just think about it. Like he came, the first time he came in weakness, human limitations. He was hungry. He slept. He was tired. Later, he's going to come in power and glory. Like whoa, this is a true me. And I think Jesus is really, this passage is saying who he is again. It's declaring who he is. As a matter of fact, the next chapter, I think it's verse 62 or something like that. Could look it up real quick. 62, 63, somewhere in there. Chapter 14, he even mentions at the court, whoops, sorry, buddy. At the court trial, I knocked him down too. Somewhere in, it says that, there it is, 62. They ask him, are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed One, in the court trial? And he says, I am, and you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One, and coming on the clouds of heaven. See? Now, is that literally the future? Could be. Well, it definitely is the future, but could be this mentioning the judgment. You, Caiaphas, some people say, all the people are going to see him coming. That's why he's predicting it. You guys are going to see it. By the way, this is definitely, he's talking about Daniel chapter 7, verse 13. And this when he says Son of Man, his favorite title of himself, it's a divine title. If you really look at it carefully, that it can't be just a human person. By the way, God rides on clouds. How can a human being ride on clouds? Jesus Christ is God. Right now, he's in human flesh. He's in humility and not in his glorified state. But that is definitely the first time that he ever connects Son of Man, his favorite title, with Daniel chapter 7, verse 13, which is definitely a major prophecy and talking about the Son of Man, which is that divine character there. But you say, Son of Man is not Son of God. Why is Son of Man divine, like deity, or another way to pronounce that is deity? Is he God or not? Yeah, he is. But he's also man. I mean, the word Son of Man typically in the Bible is talking about humans, right? Son of man, a son of a human, man. Ezekiel, that was his favorite time, and that was used over 90 times in the book of Ezekiel, and that's definitely human. Son of Man, God called him over and over. But his is a special title, because if you read Daniel 7, that is not just some human being. And unto him is given all power, dominion, and glory forever and ever. That's him. It's talking about Jesus. So this passage at that time, men will see the Son of Man coming in clouds of great power and glory. They were going, hey, that's that Daniel 7 passage. Wait, that's the guy? Yeah, he's saying he's referring to that particular passage, because it does talk about power and glory and clouds and all that. Are you confused? Good. Go search it out more. Go pray about it. Go read the Bible. And just don't decide which one. I think it could be the invisible one, where he comes through the armies of Rome. I also believe it could actually be both. He says this is what's going to happen, but also it's going to come, the visible, him coming down with power and great glory there. Could be both. I don't have a problem with that. But I tend to think, again, it was that time in 70 AD. All right, God bless you. Thanks for listening. I hope you're enjoying this. Whew. Pretty cool passages, pretty tough. Not sure what they mean exactly, but it's exciting. Some of the stuff, you know what it means. Jesus is victorious. He triumphs. He's going to die in the next couple days here. After those few days that week, he's going to die, and it's like they'll remember this. Like, what? He said he was going to come back in power and glory. Well, that could have been a hope, a word of hope, a promise, an assurance that Jesus Christ is going to sit and come back and rule. And all right, God bless you. Thank you.